Picture this. You're sitting in that shiny new car at the dealership. Leather smell in the air, sales guy grinning at you like you just made his month. You've negotiated what feels like a good deal. The monthly payment? It's a stretch, sure, but it's manageable. You sign the papers, drive off the lot feeling like a winner. And then something strange happens over the next few years. You work harder, you get raises, your income goes up, but somehow you never feel like you're getting ahead. Your bank account stays roughly the same, your stress about money doesn't budge, and that car you were so excited about? It's just sitting in your driveway, slowly becoming worth less and less, while you're still writing checks for it every single month. Here's what nobody told you at the dealership. That car payment isn't just a monthly expense, it's an anchor. It's quietly reshaping your entire financial life in ways you probably don't even realize. And if you're like most Americans, it might be the single biggest thing keeping you from building real wealth. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because the numbers have gotten genuinely alarming. According to recent data from Experian, the average monthly payment for a new car in the United States is now $749. Let me say that again, $749 every month. For used cars, the average is $529. These aren't luxury vehicles. These are just regular cars that regular people are buying. Now here's what makes this really interesting to me. It's not just the monthly payment that's changed. It's how long people are paying. The average auto loan term has stretched to nearly 69 months. That's almost 6 years of payments. And here's the kicker. According to Edmunds, 84-month loans hit an all-time high in the first quarter of this year, making up nearly 20% of all new car financing. We're talking about people committing to 7 years of car payments. 7 years. Think about where you were 7 years ago. Think about how much your life has changed. And now imagine being locked into payments on a depreciating asset for that entire time. Welcome to my channel. I'm James, and I spend a lot of time thinking about the psychology of money and the invisible decisions that shape our financial future. If this kind of content helps you see money differently, consider hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a like. It helps more than you know. So let's talk about what's actually happening here, because I think most people have been sold a story about cars and money that's fundamentally backwards. The common wisdom goes something like this. You need reliable transportation to get to work. You work hard, so you deserve a nice car. A new car is safer and more reliable than an older one. And anyway, you can afford the monthly payment, so what's the big deal? Here's the problem with that thinking. It focuses entirely on what you can afford right now and completely ignores what that decision costs you over time. It treats a car like a neutral expense when it's actually one of the most destructive financial choices you can make if you get it wrong. Let me show you what I mean with some simple math. If you're paying $749 a month for a new car, that's about $9,000 a year going toward your vehicle. Over a 6-year loan, you'll pay roughly $54,000. But wait, that's just the loan payments. The average interest rate on new car loans right now is around 7%. On a $42,000 loan, which is the current average for new vehicles, you're paying somewhere around $9,000 in interest alone over the life of the loan. So your $42,000 car actually costs you over $50,000 when all is said and done. But here's where it gets really painful. That car you paid $50,000+ for? According to Kelley Blue Book and Carfax, it loses about 20% of its value in the first year alone. By the time you've made payments for 5 years, it's worth roughly 40% of what you paid for it. You spent over $50,000 on something that's now worth maybe $20,000. You've essentially lit $30,000 on fire. Now compare that to what would happen if you invested that same money instead. If you put $749 a month into a diversified index fund tracking the S&P 500, using the historical average return of about 10% annually, after 6 years, you'd have roughly $73,000. After 10 years, you'd have around $150,000. After 20 years, you'd be looking at over $500,000. This isn't magic. This is just compound growth doing its thing with money you're currently sending to a car loan. I know what some of you are thinking, but I need a car. I can't just not have transportation. And you're right. I'm not suggesting you walk everywhere or take the bus for the rest of your life. What I'm suggesting is that there's a massive difference between having reliable transportation and financing a $40,000 depreciating asset for 7 years. Here's what I think is really going on, and this is where it gets psychological. When you take on a large car payment, you're not just buying a vehicle. You're locking yourself into a lifestyle that requires you to keep earning at a certain level just to stay afloat. Your monthly break-even point goes up. Suddenly, you need to make more money just to cover your bills. This shifts your entire relationship with work. Think about it. With a $700 car payment, plus insurance, plus gas, plus maintenance, you might be spending over $1,000 a month on your vehicle. That's $12,000 a year. For a lot of people, that's 3 or 4 months of living expenses. So instead of having money working for you, building security, creating options, you've got money flowing out of your account every month towards something that's actively losing value. This creates what I call the job must pay car trap. Your job stops being about building a career or finding meaningful work. It becomes about making enough money to cover the car payment. You can't take risks. You can't negotiate from a position of strength. You can't walk away from a bad situation because you've got that payment hanging over your head every single month. The data backs this up. According to multiple surveys, somewhere between 60 and 70% of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck. A recent PNC Bank report found that 67% of workers say they're living paycheck to paycheck, up from 63% just last year. And here's what's particularly troubling. About 27% of Americans have zero emergency savings. Nearly 60% can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense with cash. Now connect those dots. If most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and the average car payment is $750, and most people can't handle a $1,000 emergency, then that car payment isn't just expensive. It's actively preventing people from building any kind of financial cushion. This is what behavioral economists call the scarcity mindset. When you're constantly worried about making ends meet, your brain operates differently. You make worse decisions. You focus on immediate problems and can't think about long-term opportunities. You're in survival mode, not growth mode. Research from major financial institutions and academic studies shows that when people have even a small financial cushion, somewhere around $2,000 in accessible savings, their decision-making improves dramatically. They report lower stress. They make better choices about everything from health to career to relationships. Having that buffer changes how you experience the world. But here's what happens when your car payment eats up all your margin. You never build that cushion. You stay stuck in survival mode. And the psychological effects compound just like interest does, except in the wrong direction. Let me walk you through how someone actually gets trapped in this cycle, because I think seeing the pattern makes it easier to avoid. Person graduates from college or starts their career. They've been driving an older car, maybe something their parents helped them get. They land their first real job, start making decent money. They think, you know what, I've been driving this beat-up car for years. I deserve something nice. I'm finally making money. Time to upgrade. They go to the dealership. The salesperson is incredibly helpful. Shows them monthly payments, not total cost, because monthly payments sound manageable. They qualify for financing. They drive off in a shiny new car. For a few weeks, maybe even a few months, it feels great. Then reality sets in. The payment is larger than they expected once you add insurance and everything else. They're not saving as much as they planned. A few unexpected expenses come up. A medical bill, a repair at their apartment, a friend's wedding. Suddenly they're carrying a credit card balance. The interest on that starts compounding. Now they've got a car payment and credit card debt. A year or two passes. They're working hard, maybe got a raise, but the raise went to the credit card debt, and there's not much left over. They're still driving the car, but now it's not new anymore. The excitement wore off. It's just transportation at this point. Except they're still paying for it like it's something special. 3 or 4 years in, they start thinking about getting a different car. But here's the problem. They owe more on their current loan than the car is worth. They're underwater. If they want to trade it in, they'd have to roll that negative equity into a new loan. So now they're financing even more money on another depreciating asset. This is the trap, and millions of Americans are caught in it right now. Here's what I want you to understand. Getting out of this trap isn't just about saving money. It's about fundamentally shifting your relationship with cars and what they represent. When you see a nice car drive by, your brain doesn't think about the monthly payment. It thinks about status, success, achievement. We've been conditioned to associate vehicles with identity. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Nobody actually cares what you drive. Seriously. When was the last time you thought about someone else's car for more than 3 seconds? People are too busy worrying about their own stuff to notice yours. The real flex isn't driving a fancy car. The real flex is having money in the bank that gives you options. It's being able to say no to a bad job offer because you don't need the money that desperately. It's being able to handle an emergency without going into debt. It's watching your investment account grow year after year while everyone else is wondering where their paycheck went. Let me give you some concrete numbers to think about. Say you decide to buy a reliable used car for $15,000 instead of financing a new one for $45,000. You pay cash, or you finance a very small amount at a short term. Your monthly payment drops from $750 to maybe $200, or even zero. That difference of $550 a month, invested consistently in a low-cost index fund averaging around 7% real returns after inflation, would grow to approximately $56,000 in just 7 years. In 10 years, you'd have around $95,000. In 20 years, you'd have over $270,000. And that's just the car savings. That's not counting whatever else you might be able to invest. This is what I mean by invisible thresholds. Most people think about building wealth as hitting some massive number, $1 million, financial independence, early retirement, and those things are great. But there are smaller thresholds along the way that completely transform your financial life. Having $2,000 in savings changes everything. Having $10,000 changes it again. Getting to the point where you don't have a car payment? That's a threshold that most people don't even think about, but it might be one of the most important ones. When you eliminate a large recurring expense like a car payment, you don't just save that money. You change what's possible. You can max out your retirement contributions. You can build a real emergency fund. You can invest in yourself, take a course, attend a conference, start a side business. You can negotiate from strength at your job because you're not desperate for the next paycheck. The person with the $700 car payment has to say yes to overtime they don't want, to projects that drain them, to bosses who treat them poorly. The person without the car payment can afford to be selective. They can take risks that might lead to better opportunities. They can prioritize their well-being because they're not in survival mode. Now let me talk about some of the big mistakes I see people make, because I want you to avoid them. The first mistake is treating a car as an investment or a reward. I hear this all the time. I worked hard, I deserve this. Or, this car will last me 10 years, so it's a good investment. Listen, a car is not an investment. An investment is something that grows in value or produces income. A car does neither. It's a depreciating asset, which is the opposite of an investment. And while you might deserve nice things, you also deserve financial security, freedom from stress, and options in life. A new car payment actively works against all of those things. The second mistake is focusing on monthly payment instead of total cost. This is exactly what car dealers want you to do. They'll ask, what kind of monthly payment are you looking for? And then they'll stretch the loan term until they hit that number. But a $300 payment over 84 months costs way more than a $400 payment over 48 months. Always look at the total cost, including interest. That's the real number that matters. The third mistake is upgrading too soon. Your car still works fine. You're 3 years into a 5-year loan, but you're bored with it. So you trade it in, roll the remaining balance into a new loan, and start the whole cycle over again. This is how people stay trapped in car payments for their entire working lives. If you have to finance a car, pay it off completely, and then drive it for as long as reasonably possible before replacing it. The fourth mistake is thinking you need more car than you actually do. Be honest with yourself about what you need a vehicle for. If you're commuting to work and running errands, you don't need a $40,000 truck. You need reliable transportation that gets good gas mileage. The gap between what people need and what they buy is where a lot of money disappears. The fifth mistake is ignoring the total cost of ownership. The car payment is just one piece. You've also got insurance, which is significantly higher on newer and more expensive vehicles. You've got gas, you've got maintenance, you've got registration. You've got the opportunity cost of that money not being invested. When you add it all up, some people are spending more on their cars than on their housing. That's completely backwards. So what should you do instead? Here's my framework. First, separate your identity from your vehicle. This is hard because we've been conditioned to tie self-worth to what we drive. But the sooner you can break that connection, the sooner you can make rational decisions about transportation. Your car is a tool to get you from point A to point B. That's it. Second, if you have a car payment right now, make it your mission to pay it off as fast as possible, and then drive that car until the wheels fall off. Every month you drive a paid-off car is a month you can redirect that former payment into savings and investments. The longer you can stretch this phase, the more wealth you build. Third, when it's time to replace your vehicle, buy used. A car that's 2 or 3 years old has already taken the biggest appreciation hit. According to Carfax, cars lose about 30% of their value in the first 2 years. Let someone else absorb that loss. You get a perfectly good vehicle at a significant discount. Fourth, if you must finance, keep the term as short as possible. Financial experts generally recommend no more than 60 months for a new car and 36 months for a used car. If you can't afford the payments at those terms, you're looking at too much car. This is a budget reality check. Fifth, save for your next car while you're driving your current one. Once you've paid off your current vehicle, keep making that payment, but to yourself. Put it in a high-yield savings account. By the time you need to replace your car, you'll have cash to pay for most or all of it. Sixth, run the opportunity cost calculation on any vehicle purchase. Before you buy, ask yourself, if I invested the difference between this car and a cheaper alternative, what would that money be worth in 10 years, 20 years? Often the answer is eye-opening. Let me tell you about the flip side of all this because I want to end on an optimistic note. When you break free from the car payment trap, something shifts in how you see the world. You stop seeing money as something that flows through your hands and start seeing it as something that works for you. You stop seeing opportunities as threats to your stability and start seeing them as possibilities worth exploring. The person without a car payment has what I call walk-away money. Not complete financial independence, but enough cushion that they can make decisions based on what they actually want instead of what they desperately need. They can negotiate a raise knowing they could survive a few months without income if needed. They can leave a toxic work environment. They can take time to find the right opportunity instead of grabbing the first one that comes along. This changes everything. Your career trajectory improves because you're making better choices. Your stress levels drop because you're not constantly worried about making ends meet. Your relationships get better because money stress is one of the leading causes of conflict. Even your health improves because financial stress has documented effects on physical well-being. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start this momentum, it compounds. The money you save gets invested. The investments grow. The growth gives you more security. The security allows you to make better decisions. The better decisions lead to higher income and more opportunities, which gives you more to save and invest. The wheel starts turning in your favor instead of against you. That $700 car payment wasn't just costing you $700 a month. It was costing you this entire positive spiral. It was keeping you stuck in a cycle where money worked against you instead of for you. I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying you should never enjoy nice things, or that all cars are bad, or that you need to live like a monk to build wealth. What I am saying is that the decision to take on a large car payment for a depreciating asset has consequences that go way beyond the monthly budget line item. It shapes what's possible in your life. It determines whether you're moving toward financial freedom or away from it. The average American will spend over $500,000 on cars over their lifetime. That's not a typo. $500,000 on something that loses value every single day. If even half of that money was invested instead, most people would retire wealthy. The car payment trap isn't just an inconvenience. It's one of the primary reasons middle-class Americans struggle to build lasting wealth. Here's my challenge to you. Look at your current transportation situation with fresh eyes. Not through the lens of what feels normal or what everyone else does, but through the lens of what this is actually costing you. Run the numbers. See what you could build if that money was working for you, instead of draining away every month. And then decide what you really want your financial future to look like. Now I want to hear from you. What's one money decision you'd go back and redo if you could? Was it a car purchase? Something else? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and I think we can all learn from each other's experiences. If this video helped you see your car and your money in a different light, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who need to hear this stuff. And if you're not subscribed yet, consider joining the community. I put out content like this regularly, all focused on the psychology of money and building real financial security. Until next time, remember, the goal isn't to deprive yourself. The goal is to make sure your money is working for your future self, not against them. Thanks for watching.